Um, so today's topic is biodiversity crisis and its management. And today I will give you a small introduction, and later in detail we will discuss about biodiversity crisis and its management. Nature is unique in its uh, manifestation, and we see the beauty of nature in its diverse creation of plants, animals and microbes. In fact, bios means life and diversity means variety. So, biodiversity in total gives an idea about the variety of life on this earth. And biodiversity is a complex and balanced network of different species which are dependent on each other. And human being or man is also dependent on biodiversity for his food, fuel, fibers, medicines and many more things, including wood and everything. And biodiversity can be referred often as a long term sustainability of the environment. And Norsay and McManus in 1980 they proposed a concept about two types of diversities. One is genetic diversity and the other is ecological diversity. Later, W.C. Rosen in 1985 first coined the term biodiversity. This term can be often used as to equate our concern about natural environment and the conservation of nature. So, a little concern about biodiversity has been started in recent days, and the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development, in short we can UNCED, held an Earth Summit at Rio de Janeiro in 1992 and also elevated the status of biodiversity, and the year 2010 has been declared as the year of biodiversity. So, calling the world leaders to show their concern and to take steps to conservation the biodiversity. To define biodiversity, we consider the totality of genes, species and ecosystems of a region. And finally, Sondland and his school in 1993 defined as biodiversity as a structural and functional variety of life, yet genetic, specific and population and community and ecosystem levels. So, with this little brief introduction, we will go into the details of biodiversity. Next please. So, variety is spice of life. So, we see everywhere a variety in everything, and Earth is the biological capital because Earth is the only planet where water is available, no other planet is having water. Because of this we consider Earth as blue planet and life is existing on Earth only. Next please. So, what are our concerns? A fundamental question demands both intellectual and practical response. Next. So, first of all we must see what actually the biodiversity is. So, it is in short biodiversity, but people used to consider as biological diversity, which includes all different plants, animals and microorganisms, fungi and all parts of the world, the genes they contain and the products they produce, including everything on this earth related to the life forms. Next please. And it is considered as a national pride for every nation. So, the biodiversity which is present in each nation, it is a pride for that nation. So, biodiversity includes it refers as a specific species richness and variety of organisms and the physiology and biochemistry of organisms and the functional variety of life forms and the variety of ecosystems. before going into the details of biodiversity, we consider what actually happened on this earth. And biodiversity, even though many people consider that existing plants or animals are considered as biodiversity, but previously which were extinct on this earth, present and extinct presently on this earth, are also previously considered as biodiversity, and extinction is a must on this earth. And previously 5 extinctions, major extinctions were occurred on this earth, and they were natural. If there is any 6th extinction, it is due to man only. Next please. You can skip this. And we refer biodiversity or biological diversity today as the existing life forms only. Next. And we have knowledge of biodiversity in the past also, because we have fossil records and some molecular data. And for having fossil records of all extinct organisms, it was very difficult to recover, and evidences were not preserved clearly, so it was not possible. Next. Still we have some measure of biodiversity in the past in their own right, and provide an invaluable pictorial history in the terms of fossils. Next please. We can skip this also. And there has been an overall pattern of increase in biodiversity from the appearance of the first organism up to the present day. So despite the fact that more than 90% of the species have existed and they have become extinct, and only 10% now are existing. And one of the key innovations which opened the door to a major increase in biodiversity was the event of multicellularity. Next please. We can skip this one also. Next. So next we will come to level of biodiversity. So there are different levels considering biodiversity: genetic diversity, species diversity, ecological diversity, and evolutionary diversity, and agrobiodiversity. We will see one by one. Next. So this is a genetic variation. Even though they belong to a single species, and even though the siblings of one mother, they personally are different from each other. We can identify easily each one of them. So the differences among the siblings is due to genetic variation. Next. So the same, even though they belong to same species, we can identify each one of them by their genetic variation. So genetic variation gives individual variation in the population. Next. So the same thing can be applied for plants also, for various colors of same species. Next. So we can see here different variety of butterflies and moths. Next. So this is species diversity. So variety of species here. So how many types of organisms are present in a region, that gives an idea about a species diversity. So how many types of organisms are there, including plants, animals, and all that. It gives an idea about a species diversity. Next please. So this one is ecosystem variation or diversity, ecosystem diversity. We see here an aquatic ecosystem and a hilly ecosystem and a grassland and a forest. 4 types of ecosystems we are seeing here. Next. So, each one of them is different from each one, and this is another type of ecosystem. This is aquatic ecosystem. You can pass on these photos 3 or 4. So, all these give us different idea about different types of ecosystems, a desert ecosystem and a lake and a pond and a river ecosystem, something like that. And we see the number of organisms. Each country has its own type of biodiversity, and some of them are endemic also. It gives the share of the biodiversity among the nations. Next please. So, at a global level, the biodiversity includes nearly 10 to 100 million we assume, and out of that only 1.75 million were studied and identified and given names. And next. In our country, in India, the flora constitute 48,736 plants and fauna 57,528, and a total 1,26,188 types of organisms are present in our country. Next. So, the value of why we should show some concern about the biodiversity, because it is valuable. Biodiversity is valuable. So, what is the value of biodiversity? It has certain types of back values, and we have direct use values. So, which are consumption of marketable commodities. We can take some materials from the biodiversity and sell them and earn some money. So, they are in direct use value. Indirect use values shows services provided by biodiversity crucial for human well-being. So, the biodiversity services includes provision of oxygen or formation of soil, or some services are there, and we cannot commercialize those services. And non-use values, we directly do not use these organisms, but we have some values like option use value, bequest value, existence value, intrinsic value, etc. They show some importance. The very existence and presence of that organism gives some value to that region. Next please. So, option value is for future, not now, but for future use, we can use it or may not use it. So, it is an optional one. And bequest value is the resource is passed on to the next generation or future generations as a material resource. So, if we pass these biodiversity or organisms to the next generation only, they can utilize them. Now, how to use them we do not know, but in future they may be useful in future generations. Next. So, it provides ecosystem services also. Existence value gives some use or non-use. It includes aesthetic value also, and intrinsic value gives inherent worth independent of that placed upon it by people. It gives some importance for its existence. Next. So, biodiversity, there are 3 types: alpha diversity, beta diversity and gamma diversity. They are all come under species diversity. So, we have alpha diversity means the richness of species, how many types are there in a particular ecosystem, that means in a region or in a place. And beta diversity includes different communities which often migrate or immigrate into that ecosystem, and sets of organisms, sets of populations may differ from time to time, but in the same existing same ecosystem existing and sharing the same natural resources. And gamma diversity gives us the idea about the topographic differentiation among the habitats of different communities. And we see here two pictures having the same number of organisms, but these two differ in the variety of organisms, even though number of organisms are same. Naturally, the sample A and natural sample B, naturally the sample A is more diversified than the sample B, because sample B consists only two types of organisms, whereas sample A has three types of organisms. Next please. The same here also. Few samples showed here, and sample 1 shows 3 types of organisms, whereas sample 2 shows also 3 types, whereas in sample 3 types are there. But even though we can differentiate which is a richer biodiversity is there, so richer in species diversity. That means here in sample 3 we have one mammal, one bird and one insect, something like that. So different types of organisms are present in sample 3. We consider sample 3 as a rich biodiversity area. Next. So this picture gives us about idea about alpha diversity and beta diversity and gamma diversity as shown by the markings. Next please. So this is world map. Next. Here in the world we see 25 hotspots. Before considering these hotspots, we consider what is a hotspot. Hotspot is nothing but an area which is rich with organisms, and at least 70% of organisms should be present there itself, not in other areas. They are called endemic. So they are highly localized organisms or species which are confined to that area only. If that area, in that area more than 70% of those plants were highly utilized by the human populations, then lot of pressure is there on biodiversity, and we consider that place as a hotspot, because that area is losing very fast the organisms and they become extinct. So the areas which are rich and endemic with species, and they are hardly pressed for their survival, and they are eliminated by the human pressures. So those areas are considered as hotspots, and 25 were identified as hotspots all over the world, and India has 2, and one in Western Ghats and one in Himalayan, Eastern Himalayan regions. Next.